One sound, one glance, one mistake. That's all it took for my world to crack open. It wasn't the kind of cinematic explosion you see in movies where everything comes crashing down in a fiery spectacle. Not his was quieter, more intimate, more terrifying. A door opening when it shouldn't have. Pause that stretched too long. Eyes meeting mine at exactly the wrong moment, with the wrong truth hanging between us. In that fragile sliver of time, I could almost hear the years of hiding splintering inside me. The walls I had built so carefully around my secret life trembled, and I realized I was seconds away from losing control of the story I thought I owned. The strange thing about fear is that it doesn't arrive in neat waves. It floods you all at once. In that instant, I wasn't just worried about being caught wearing something I shouldn't, or standing in a way that revealed too much. I was terrified of what it meant if the illusion shattered. Who would I be once the secret was out? How would the people I loved look at me when they saw the side of me I had hidden like contraband in a locked drawer? Would they recoil? Would they laugh? Or worse, would they pretend not to notice, leaving me suspended in the unbearable silence of their quiet judgment? I wanted to believe I had time to prepare for this moment, that one day I'd choose how to tell my story on my own terms. But the truth rarely respects your calendar. It arrives uninvited, demanding to be seen. And so I stood there, heart hammering, skin prickling, feeling every ounce of my double life pressing against me like a costume that no longer fit. Have you ever known, in the marrow of your bones, that the chapter you're in is ending whether you're ready or not? That was me, frozen, exposed, trying to bargain with a clock that refused to stop ticking. What struck me hardest wasn't just the fear of rejection. It was the sudden realization that I had built my identity on fragile ground. I had lived as two versions of myself, one polished, safe, acceptable, and another hidden, fragile, achingly real. When the door opened, those two versions collided, and I couldn't keep them separate anymore. The collision hurt more than I can describe, but within the hurt there was also a strange clarity. If everything was going to collapse, maybe that collapse was also a kind of beginning. At that moment, I didn't have the luxury of reflection. All I had was the pounding question: what happens to me now that everyone knows, or at least someone knows? That question wrapped around me tighter than any fabric ever had, squeezing, suffocating, yet also daring me to find an answer. Because deep down, beneath the trembling and the shame, I could sense a truth I hadn't yet had the courage to admit. This stormy story was never just about clothes or appearances or even secrecy. It was about identity, about fear, about the desperate human need to be seen without disguise. So yes, it began with a mistake. Sound. A glance. A single moment that forced me into a spotlight I had spent my life avoiding. But maybe, just maybe, it was never truly a mistake. Maybe it was the universe insisting that I stop hiding, that I confront the terrifying possibility that being known even in the most vulnerable, unplanned way could lead to a kind of freedom I'd never allowed myself to imagine. And with that thought, I knew the story I was about to share wasn't only mine. It belonged to anyone who has ever lived in the shadows, waiting for the day their own secret life came crashing down. I remember the exact moment everything began, though it started so quietly, almost invisibly, like a seed planted in the shade. There was a strange thrill in those early days, a delicate tension between who I was in private and who the world assumed I was. I discovered this part of myself almost by accident, a single experiment with a borrowed scarf, a stray eyeliner pencil that felt foreign and powerful at once. From that moment, a ritual began, a secret life quietly stitched into the folds of ordinary days. Every small action carried its own weight: the careful hiding of clothes, the soft click of the makeup case snapping shut, the constant calculation of where eyes might wander. There was a rhythm to it, a heartbeat that no one else could feel, an invisible choreography between desire and discretion. I wondered sometimes whether anyone else understood what it felt like to carry a hidden self like a fragile glass ornament, fearing even the smallest tremor might shatter it. The first time I truly dressed, the first time I let the reflection in the mirror hold me in its gaze, it was like stepping into a different reality, both intoxicating and terrifying. I remember the way the fabric slid across my skin, the subtle contours of lipstick tracing lines I had only ever imagined. Every brushstroke, every careful adjustment of hair or clothing, became a secret conversation with myself. I stood there, frozen, feeling the paradox of power and vulnerability. For the first time, I was looking at a version of myself that existed in full color, in a light that had never been allowed before. And yet, the reflection was also a warning, a reminder that this world was not ready for me to inhabit it openly. The excitement was inseparable from the fear, and the fear, in turn, amplified the pleasure. It was a private thrill, a tiny rebellion against the constraints of who I was expected to be. There were nights when I stayed awake for hours, listening for the sound of someone approaching, the creak of a floorboard, imagining the moment my secret might be discovered. Even in the safety of my room, anxiety had a persistent pulse. I developed little rituals to manage it, gestures that were invisible to anyone else but anchored me in a sense of control, lining up my outfits just so, testing combinations of colors and textures in dim light, memorizing the order of my brushes. I became fluent in the language of secrecy, translating desire into discipline, improvising strategies to exist without exposing myself. And in doing so, I also learned something profound. This part of me, this hidden identity, was not a whim. It was an essential fragment of who I was, a truth that refused to be erased, even by fear. At the same time, the duality of existence created a sharp contrast in my life, a tension that twisted my emotions daily. Outwardly, I played the part expected of me, blending, smiling, performing normalcy. Inwardly, I was constantly rehearsing, imagining scenarios in which I might slip, imagining the judgment, the misunderstanding, the shock. And yet, each time I returned to my secret space, the intensity of life seemed amplified. There was a paradoxical freedom in knowing that nobody else could intrude, a liberty in privacy that felt almost sacred. I reveled in the details, the texture of fabrics against my skin, the subtle scent of cosmetics, the delicate architecture of my appearance carefully curated in solitude. These moments, though small, became lifelines, offering a sense of self that was wholly mine, beyond anyone else's gaze. It wasn't only about clothes or makeup. It was about inhabiting an identity that felt authentic, even if the world outside could not recognize it. Each gesture of self-expression was also a gesture of defiance, a quiet assertion that who I was could not be contained by expectation. And yet, the fear never fully dissipated. I remember one evening, the mirror reflecting not just my image but the looming possibility of exposure. My heart raced, my hands trembled slightly as I adjusted a strand of hair, and I realized how delicate this balance truly was. It was a life lived on the edge of discovery, where every sound, every shadow, seemed pregnant with consequence. I wondered, with a pang of both dread and anticipation, how long I could maintain this equilibrium before it all came crashing down. There were moments, too, of profound shame, when I questioned myself, my motives, my desires. Could anyone accept this part of me? Should it even exist? And yet, in the same breath, there were flashes of pride, of recognition, that this identity was not a mistake, nor a phase. It was something vivid, something that demanded acknowledgement, if only in private. Every decision to continue, to perfect, to explore, carried both courage and risk. It was a constant negotiation, a dialogue between fear and exhilaration, between hiding and revelation. I began to understand the weight of secrecy, how it can both protect and isolate, and how it shapes not only our actions but the very contours of our self-perception. Perhaps the most intimate moments were those small victories, when I managed to step fully into this hidden self without consequence, even if only for a few hours. The thrill of dressing, the joy of looking in the mirror and seeing a reflection aligned with my inner truth, created a kind of quiet euphoria. It was fleeting, yes, and fragile, yet intensely real. And in those moments, I glimpsed the full spectrum of my identity, not fractured, not hidden, but whole, illuminated in ways the outside world could not yet comprehend. Each brushstroke, each carefully chosen piece of clothing, became a declaration. I exist, matter. I am more than the expectations imposed upon me. But for every triumph, there was an equal and opposite anxiety, a reminder that this life of secrecy was not sustainable indefinitely. The thought of exposure hovered like a shadow, a subtle but constant pressure that tested my resolve. Every knock on the door, every unexpected presence in the hallway, triggered a cascade of fear and anticipation. And yet, in reflecting on it now, I see how that tension shaped me, how it honed my awareness, my creativity, my ability to navigate the complex terrain of identity and perception. In the delicate balance between revelation and concealment, I discovered a resilience I had never known, and a deep, enduring connection to the self I was learning to embrace. Through all of its fear, the secrecy, the small, private triumphs, I learned that identity is not a single, static construct. It is fluid, layered, and deeply personal. And perhaps that is the lesson I carry with me, the understanding that even when the world is unready, even when exposure threatens, the act of honoring one's truth is itself a form of courage. There is a power in the hidden life, a richness in the private moments of authenticity, and a profound recognition that who we are beneath the surface is not a secret to be ashamed of, but a truth to be understood, nurtured, and, when the time is right, revealed. It started with small tremors, little trembles that hinted at the fragility of my secret. A scarf left carelessly on the chair, a lipstick cap misplaced, and suddenly my pulse spiked. Was that a shadow moving in the hallway? A glance from my roommate that lingered just a second too long? My mind raced, tracing every possible scenario, rehearsing every excuse I might need. The fear was immediate, almost physical, like the air itself had thickened around me. And in that instant, I understood how precarious this hidden world was, how easily a single slip could unravel everything I had so carefully constructed. I remember one afternoon vividly. I had just returned from a quick trip to the store, my bag heavy with items that I dared not leave in plain sight. As I placed it on the floor, a pair of eyes met mine from across the room, curious, questioning, unblinking. My stomach tightened. Every rational thought vanished, replaced by an acute awareness that I was being observed. My hand hovered, unsure whether to hide, to push the bag under the couch, to pretend it wasn't there. I froze, the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. And then, as if the universe decided to grant mercy, the eyes shifted away. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, a reminder that the margin for error was razor thin. Then there were the tiny betrayals of objects. A brush left on the bathroom counter, a bottle of nail polish on the shelf. Each item had its own potential to expose me, and I treated them as ticking time bombs. I would catch myself mid-action, heart in my throat, imagining someone opening the door at that exact moment. My mind ran through scenarios over and over, a mental rehearsal of panic and explanation. Every almost discovery sharpened my senses, heightened my attention to detail, and yet it also carried a weight, a constant background anxiety that seemed to hum beneath every interaction. The tension was relentless, a quiet drumbeat that followed me through ordinary routines. There was the time I thought I had hidden everything perfectly, only to realize later that a single glove had fallen behind the dresser. It was inconspicuous enough that no one might notice, yet my imagination transformed it into a neon sign flashing. Secret revealed. I replayed that moment endlessly, the fear mingling with a strange thrill, the adrenaline of knowing the danger had passed for now. But each close call escalated the stakes. One brush with discovery was a whisper. The next could be a shout. And in that pattern, I began to notice the rhythm of my life. Rise in tension, near miss, temporary relief, repeat. It was exhausting and yet oddly intoxicating. Sometimes the suspense came from sounds rather than sights. The unexpected creak of a floorboard, the click of a door, footsteps approaching my room. Every ordinary sound became a potential alarm, a signal that my secret could be uncovered at any moment. I learned to interpret these noises with a heightened awareness, measuring their proximity, judging their significance. There was a constant internal dialogue. Do I freeze? Do I hide? Do I feign ignorance? And every decision, every microaction, carried the weight of possibility, the knowledge that a single misstep could shatter the careful balance I had maintained. There was one incident that still sits like a knot in my chest. I had been trying a new outfit, something bolder than usual, and had left the bedroom door slightly ajar. A friend wandered in unexpectedly, and for a split second our eyes met. The world seemed to pause. My mind raced to construct excuses, to cover, to divert attention. I could feel my pulse in my temples, hear it in my ears, the sound of time slowing as though it were a tangible thing. Then mercifully they looked away, distracted by a trivial conversation topic. The relief was immediate, almost shocking. But the tension lingered, a reminder that the safety of my private world was always contingent, always temporary. Each near discovery left a mark, subtle but profound. My behavior adjusted almost imperceptibly. I double-checked doors, reassessed hiding spots, refined my rituals. Every item out of place, every curious glance, every accidental sound became a lesson in vigilance. I became hyper-aware of patterns, anticipating human behavior, reading body language, predicting movements. My inner self, the part that thrived in secret expression, existed in constant negotiation with this vigilant, anxious counterpart. And through that negotiation, I discovered something unexpected, a resilience I hadn't recognized, a capacity to endure pressure, to adapt, to survive in a world that was not designed for my truth to exist openly. The suspense intensified in ways I could not always control. There were moments when I thought I had anticipated every variable, only to be caught off guard by the randomness of life. A sudden knock, a forgotten item, a question asked in passing, all potential triggers for exposure. And yet, each time, I learned to navigate the danger with increasing finesse. The stakes became a teacher, showing me how to balance secrecy with authenticity, fear with courage. I discovered the intricate dance of hidden identity, how to exist fully in a private realm, while maintaining the outward performance demanded by the world. Inevitably, the small slip-ups began to form a pattern. Each close call felt more dangerous than the last, the anxiety compounding, the risk intensifying. I became acutely aware of the fragile nature of the boundary I had constructed between my hidden self and public life. And in that awareness, a new emotion emerged alongside fear, a kind of reverent respect for the secret I was protecting, and for the ingenuity required to protect it. I began to recognize the stakes not merely as obstacles, but as a reflection of how deeply this identity mattered to me. The more at risk it felt, the more real it became. There were nights when I would replay incidents in my mind, examining every detail, every shadow, every possible clue that might have hinted at my secret. I imagined discovery from multiple angles, rehearsing conversations, imagining reactions. The tension was almost unbearable, yet it forged a kind of intimacy with my inner self. I began to understand the psychology of secrecy, how it magnifies perception, sharpens attention, and creates a symbiotic relationship between fear and exhilaration. Each near discovery was both a challenge and a revelation, forcing me to confront not only the external threat but also my own attachment to privacy, my own courage, my own desire to be seen on my own terms. And then, there were moments when the suspense became almost unbearable. The near misses were no longer minor inconveniences. They were warnings, urgent pulses signaling that my secret life was teetering on the edge of exposure. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. A tightened chest, shallow breaths, a flinch at the sound of approaching footsteps. Each scenario, each imagined discovery, became a miniature thriller, a suspense story in which I was both the protagonist and the audience. The adrenaline was addictive, even as it terrified me, and I realized that the risk itself had become intertwined with the very essence of my secret expression. Through this cascade of almost discoveries, I learned the delicate art of control, of timing, of presence. I learned to navigate risk with precision, to anticipate curiosity without paranoia, to sustain secrecy without suffocating. And more than anything, I learned empathy for anyone living in a hidden world, for anyone carrying a part of themselves they cannot safely reveal. The tension, the fear, the relief, and the exhilaration were not just personal experiences, they were universal, a mirror of the human condition. The desire to be known, the fear of judgment, and the delicate negotiation that lies between. I will never forget the instant it happened. The moment where years of secrecy and careful orchestration unraveled in a single, breathless heartbeat. One careless movement, one slight misjudgment, and suddenly the walls I had built around my private self felt paper-thin. The person standing there, someone I trusted, someone who mattered more than I could put into words, paused mid-step, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Silence filled the room like a thick fog, and in that silence, I could feel every second stretch into eternity. My mind spun uncontrollably, replaying every possible outcome. Was this the end? Would they recoil, disgusted, appalled, unable to reconcile the person they knew with the person standing before them? In those 5 seconds, I rehearsed 100 goodbyes. I imagined their voice trembling as they rejected me. Imagined the shift in their gaze from love to shock to disappointment. My throat tightened, my hands trembled slightly, and my heart threatened to burst. Each tick of the clock was a hammer pounding against my ribs, each breath a struggle between fight, flight, and frozen despair. How had it come to this? How had I allowed the fragility of my hidden world to collide with reality so violently? The exhilaration, the thrill, the joy of my secret life, all of it seemed poised to crumble. My imagination became a storm of worst-case scenarios. And yet, somewhere beneath the panic, a fragile thread of hope lingered. Their reaction was not immediate. There was no shriek, no sudden turning away, no judgment etched into their features. Just a pause, a quiet inhalation, the subtle widening of eyes. In that moment, I saw the conflict in them, the struggle between understanding and shock, recognition and disbelief. It was raw, it was unfiltered, and it terrified me. Every gesture, every nuance was magnified, as though the world had slowed down to focus entirely on this singular revelation. I wanted to retreat, to vanish into the floorboards, to erase the moment entirely. But I couldn't. I had been discovered, and there was no undoing it. And then, slowly, something shifted. A soft exhale, a step closer, a look not of disgust but of curiosity. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. There was an undercurrent of compassion, a willingness to understand rather than immediately condemn. The tension did not vanish, it still lingered, tight and taut, but it coexisted with an unexpected relief. I realized, in that delicate balance, that I had been granted a chance I did not deserve but desperately needed. They were processing, struggling, attempting to reconcile what they had always known with what they had never imagined, and in doing so they had not turned away. I could feel my mind begin to calm, fractionally, as I met their gaze. The words I had feared would shatter us were no longer necessary. Instead, there was recognition, a quiet acknowledgement of vulnerability, a bridge forming between two people standing on either side of an emotional chasm. Their expression softened further, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of their lips, and I realized that this moment was not just about my secret being exposed, it was about the opportunity for connection, for understanding, for something profoundly human and rare. I had expected disaster. I had rehearsed rejection in every form imaginable. And yet, in contrast, here was something else entirely. A fragile, tentative, but undeniable offer of support. My thoughts raced, grappling with relief and residual fear. Could I trust this? Was this compassion genuine, or merely the first flicker of shock before disappointment set in? Even as hope blossomed, anxiety lingered at the edges, whispering reminders that the world had not changed, that exposure could still carry consequences. But for the first time in years, I felt a sense of possibility, a glimpse of a future in which my inner self and my outer reality might coexist without constant peril. That brief, seemingly small act of kindness planted a seed, one that would grow slowly, nurtured by trust, understanding, and the willingness of another to meet me in that vulnerable space. I remember every detail. The way their hand hesitated midair, the soft cadence of their voice as they asked a careful question, the subtle shifts in posture that conveyed curiosity rather than condemnation. It was as if time had contracted, stretching every micro-expression into profound significance. I felt my pulse slow fractionally, my body uncoiling from its prior state of tension. In that moment, I recognized the paradox of vulnerability. It exposes us, yes, but it also opens the door to connection, empathy, and authentic acceptance. The very act of showing someone this hidden part of myself, though terrifying, became an act of courage with the power to transform not only how they saw me, but how I saw myself. And yet, the relief was not absolute. The uncertainty still lingered, a gentle but persistent reminder that acceptance is not a singular event but a process. Even as compassion replaced shock, I knew that understanding would take time, that questions would arise, that boundaries would need to be tested and respected. But the contrast between what I had feared and what actually transpired was stark, profound, and transformative. I had anticipated rejection, collapse, and distance, and instead found a tentative bridge, a hand extended across a space I had imagined as uncrossable. That difference, subtle yet monumental, reshaped my perception of trust, intimacy, and the potential for genuine human connection. In the wake of that pivotal moment, I understood that revelation is rarely a single point in time. It is a process, a series of interactions that ripple outward, altering perceptions and relationships in ways that are sometimes visible, sometimes subtle, but always enduring. That initial encounter, charged with fear and tempered with empathy, set the stage for a new dynamic, one in which my identity could exist without constant concealment, at least in part. It was not the end of anxiety, but it was the first evidence that acceptance is possible, that the world may respond with kindness rather than condemnation, and that the risks of vulnerability can yield profound rewards. In those minutes, that fragile interlude between panic and understanding, I realized the power of human empathy. I realized that even when our most private selves are exposed, connection is possible, support is possible, and the bridge between fear and acceptance is shorter than it seems. That moment became a turning point, a reminder that even in the most intense vulnerability, there can be light, compassion, and the beginnings of trust that can transform a secret from a source of shame into a seed of strength. It was, in every sense, the moment my world began to shift. For the first time, I felt a flicker of permission, a subtle but undeniable shift that allowed me to step into the world with more than just the shadow of my private self. With one ally by my side, someone who had witnessed the secret, processed it, and chosen to stand with me, the idea of experimenting outside the confines of my bedroom began to feel possible. That first decision to walk into a store, fully dressed, visible, and unhidden was both exhilarating and terrifying. Every step carried the weight of exposure and the thrill of authenticity simultaneously. Could I really do this? Could the world hold me as I was, even if only for a moment? The question lingered, yet my feet moved forward, carrying me toward a new frontier of self-expression. The first outing was an exercise in hyper-awareness. The air seemed thicker, every sound more pronounced. I could feel the texture of the fabric against my skin with a heightened intensity, the brush of hair along my cheek as if the mirror had followed me outside. My ally walked slightly behind, a silent buffer, a reassuring presence without the need for words. Every glance from strangers became a puzzle, every sideways look a potential story. Did they notice? Did they understand? Or was it just curiosity, fleeting and harmless? My pulse quickened, and with each heartbeat, a paradoxical mixture of fear and exhilaration surged through me. The outside world was no longer a distant abstract. It had become a stage, and I was performing, though not for anyone else. I was performing for myself. Shopping became an arena of subtle discovery. The scent of new clothes, the soft rustle of hangers, the warmth of sunlight streaming through display windows, all sensory details were amplified, heightened, magnified by the knowledge that I was visible in ways I had only dared in private. Every outfit I tried on became a negotiation with myself. Confidence versus hesitation, desire versus risk. Could I carry this presence without flinching? Could I allow my inner self to fully emerge while negotiating the silent judgments of the outside world? And yet, alongside the tension, there was a remarkable delight in each small victory. A kind smile from a cashier, a compliment whispered and sincere, a fleeting sense of being seen as I truly was. These moments, however brief, became lifelines, tangible proof that the world might be navigated without hiding entirely. Photographs, once a source of anxiety, transformed into tools of affirmation. Each click of the camera captured not just an image but a memory of courage, a record of firsts that could never be erased. The first selfie outside the bedroom felt like holding lightning in my hands, terrifying, radiant, full of potential. I remember adjusting angles, checking light, studying expressions, and feeling the paradoxical sensation of both vulnerability and control. The lens reflected not just appearance but essence, a confirmation that this life I had been hiding was real, embodied, and capable of thriving in spaces beyond the shadows. And yet, with every shot came a flinch, a momentary thought. Will someone judge this? Will someone understand? It was the oscillation of anxiety and exhilaration that defined this period, a rhythm that I both feared and craved. Some encounters were triumphs. I recall walking through a crowded street when a stranger smiled at me, briefly, kindly, acknowledging my presence in a way that felt simple, yet monumental. It was not recognition of my secret, but validation of my existence, of my right to occupy space freely. That small interaction carried the weight of a revelation. Confidence is contagious, and sometimes, the world rewards authenticity with fleeting, unexpected affirmations. My heart lifted with each such encounter, creating a buoyancy that made even the anxious moments more bearable. These tiny victories became cumulative, each one stacking like bricks in the foundation of a new identity, one that could hold both fear and pride in equal measure. Other moments were more challenging, subtle shocks that reminded me of the persistent stakes. A sidelong glance from someone who seemed puzzled, a whispered comment just beyond hearing, a sense that judgment hovered nearby like a cloud. The contrast between these moments and the affirmations intensified every emotion, heightening my awareness of both risk and possibility. Did they notice something I had missed? Did they understand, or did they misinterpret entirely? The inner conflict was relentless. Each step forward into the world was simultaneously an act of bravery and a potential exposure, a negotiation between desire and caution. And yet, even in these moments of subtle scrutiny, I recognized a strange truth. Discomfort was a sign of growth, tension a marker of transformation. The oscillation between triumph and apprehension became a rhythm of its own. I began to map the territory of my public expression, noting which situations brought exhilaration and which sparked anxiety. Cafes, streets, shops, even fleeting public transit rides became a laboratory, each outing a test of courage and resilience. I tracked micro-victories, an approving glance, an encouraging comment, and micro-defeats, the abrupt turn of a head, the whisper just out of earshot. This constant feedback loop, though emotionally taxing, became a guide, showing me the boundaries of comfort and the possibilities beyond. I learned to anticipate the unknown, to brace for judgment, and to savor affirmation with equal intensity. There was a profound intimacy in sharing these moments with my ally. Their presence was a buffer, yes, but also a mirror reflecting my potential. When I hesitated, they offered subtle encouragement. When anxiety threatened to overtake exhilaration, they reminded me that visibility did not necessitate vulnerability to harm. Together, we navigated the uncharted terrain, exploring spaces that once felt inaccessible. And in doing so, I realized that courage is amplified by connection, that the act of existing openly, even partially, is less terrifying when accompanied by understanding. Their support was a lifeline, a scaffolding that allowed me to experiment safely, to push boundaries incrementally, and to discover the contours of my own emerging identity. I discovered something remarkable through these experiences. The outside world, though unpredictable, was not always the enemy. The interplay of wins and losses, affirmation and subtle judgment, created a dynamic that mirrored life itself. Just as everyone experiences firsts, the first time speaking in public, the first time performing, the first time fully expressing a long-suppressed truth, I was encountering my own set of initiations. Each outing was a miniature adventure, charged with the electricity of possibility. And in these adventures, I learned that vulnerability and courage are inseparable. One cannot fully exist without the other, and every exposure, every risk, carries the potential for both connection and growth. Even the losses, the micro-judgments, became instructive. A whispered remark, a passing smirk, or a lingering glance of doubt was not merely a wound. It was data, a lesson in resilience, a reminder that not every encounter would validate mean that the journey toward authenticity is rarely linear. The highs and lows created a pattern, a cadence, an emotional landscape that demanded constant attention, reflection, and recalibration. And through it all, I began to sense a larger truth. Living authentically is not about the absence of fear or judgment, but about embracing them while continuing to move forward, step by deliberate step, into a life that honors one's inner reality. As the days and weeks unfolded, I found myself increasingly able to savor the small victories without being paralyzed by the potential losses. I began to anticipate joy in ways I had never allowed myself before, to recognize courage in its subtle forms, and to embrace the oscillation of emotions as both natural and essential. Every outing, every photo, every small affirmation was a thread weaving a new tapestry of identity, one that held anxiety and exhilaration, exposure and privacy, fear and triumph, all in a delicate balance. And through this intricate, emotionally charged process, I began to understand that stepping out of the shadows, even cautiously, is both an act of discovery and an affirmation of one's right to exist fully. I had grown accustomed to the delicate balance of a secret world, the careful choreography of exposure and concealment. But nothing could prepare me for the moment the circle widened. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with 4 words that felt heavier than bricks. "We need to talk." Time seemed to slow. I could feel my chest tighten, my throat constrict. Ooh, what had been discovered? My mind raced through every possible scenario, imagining responses ranging from confusion to disgust, from indifference to ridicule. The text felt like a drumbeat, each pulse amplifying the uncertainty, each vibration a countdown to judgment. The conversation began with careful words, measured tones, and the weight of unspoken assumptions. Some voices were warm, tentative, but supportive, a lifeline thrown across the gap of my fear. "I understand," one said, and for a moment I could breathe. Relief mingled with disbelief. Could someone really see this side of me and not recoil? Could they truly acknowledge my identity without judgment? Each affirmation became a small victory, a reminder that the courage to be seen, though terrifying, could yield connection instead of alienation. Yet even as I felt that fragile relief, shadows lingered at the edges, whispers of doubt seeded by prior experiences, by the ingrained fear of being rejected for simply existing as I was. Other reactions were more complicated. Some faces grew distant, eyes that once held warmth now refracted uncertainty. Conversations became awkward, laced with pauses where assumptions hung like storm clouds. I sensed the internal calculation. Do we accept this, ignore it, or distance ourselves? Every word, every gesture, every silence carried weight. My stomach knotted as I read expressions, trying to interpret the unspoken, wondering if bridges had been silently burned. The uncertainty cut sharply, a reminder that visibility comes with stakes far beyond personal comfort. Would they see the courage in my authenticity, or simply the disruption of their expectations? Then there were moments of cruelty, subtle or direct, that struck like lightning in the middle of calm. A snide comment disguised as a joke, a lingering look of disbelief, a conversation that ended abruptly, leaving tension in the air. Each instance was a reminder of the fragility of acceptance, how quickly admiration or neutrality could pivot into judgment. My heart sank with the weight of exposure, yet paradoxically, these moments reinforced my resilience. If I could endure this, if I could continue to stand despite disapproval. I realized that my sense of self was no longer contingent on universal approval. Vulnerability had become armor, a paradoxical shield forged through openness and fear. I remember reading messages from family and coworkers, feeling the emotional tremors of each notification. Some were hesitant, typing and deleting, revising words in search of the right balance. Others were abrupt, their language sharp, defensive, or confused. And still, there were the few that simply said, "I see you," and nothing more. Those words, deceptively simple, felt like a lighthouse in a storm, signaling that amidst judgment and uncertainty, understanding could exist. My heart, still hammering with the adrenaline of exposure, began to register a subtle shift. Perhaps visibility did not have to equal destruction. Perhaps authenticity could survive scrutiny without being annihilated. The contrast between support, distance, and cruelty created a complex emotional landscape. I oscillated between relief and anxiety, between pride in my courage and terror of rejection. How could one navigate such polarized reactions? How could one remain anchored while the currents of judgment pulled from every direction? The lesson unfolded not in the instant of discovery, but in the ongoing negotiation of presence and perception, in the acknowledgement that resilience is not the absence of fear, but the capacity to continue despite it. Each conversation, each message, each glance or whisper became part of a broader narrative, one of survival, adaptation, and self-recognition. Even as the storm of reactions raged, I found moments of clarity. I realized that being seen even imperfectly, even with mixed responses, was transformative. The fear of judgment, though still present, no longer had total dominion. I could move through the world carrying my identity openly, knowing that acceptance, partial or complete, was possible. Vulnerability had become a tool of empowerment, a way to test the resilience of connections and the authenticity of relationships. Each supportive voice strengthened my courage. Each negative encounter honed my ability to navigate social risk without losing sight of my truth. By the end of those days, I understood that exposure is not a singular event, it is a process, a series of interactions that gradually reshape perception, expectation, and self-conception. The chaos of differing reactions, the oscillation between fear and relief, became a crucible in which my inner resilience was forged. I discovered that courage is relational as well as internal. It grows not just from standing alone, but from measuring the strength of one's identity against the varied landscape of human response. Some will embrace you, some will flinch, and some may recoil, but the act of continuing to exist authentically is, in itself, a triumph. In the quiet aftermath, I reflected on the lesson that the storm of reactions, supportive, distant, cruel, was not a reflection of my worth but a mirror of humanity in its varied forms. Each response illuminated a facet of social risk, revealing the universal fear of difference and the fragile promise of acceptance. And in that reflection, I felt a profound, almost cathartic recognition. Exposure, though terrifying, can lead to growth, to connection, to a deeper understanding of oneself and others. The storm had passed, not without scars or lingering tension, but with a clarity that only such trials can provide. I had entered this expanded circle with trepidation, imagining collapse, ridicule, and isolation. Instead, I emerged with a nuanced understanding of vulnerability and resilience. I saw that the right blend of support, patience, and courage could transform fear into empowerment, exposure into opportunity, and judgment into insight. And though the aftermath still required careful navigation, the experience had instilled a certainty I had never known: that being seen fully and authentically is a risk worth taking, and that even in the presence of partial acceptance, one can find strength, grounding, and the promise of connection. Looking back, the journey feels almost unreal, a mosaic of fear, exhilaration, exposure, and resilience stitched together with moments of panic and triumph. I can see now that every heartbeat of anxiety, every almost discovery, every hesitant step into the unknown was a thread in a tapestry that shaped who I am today. For years, I had lived in shadows, crafting rituals of concealment, rehearsing excuses, and holding my private self at a distance so vast it almost felt separate from my public persona. I thought that hiding was survival, that secrecy was armor. But I realize now that it was also a cage, and the moment of crashing down was not destruction, it was release. It started as fear, raw and unrelenting. Every glance from someone else, every misplaced object, every unexpected sound became a trigger. I walked through life anticipating exposure, rehearsing apologies, imagining every possible rejection before it could even occur. I felt the weight of potential judgment like gravity pressing me down, making the act of existing fully in my own skin feel almost impossible. Yet beneath that fear was something else. A spark of desire, a whisper that my inner self was not meant to remain hidden. It was a small, insistent voice that asked, "What if authenticity is possible? What if being seen does not have to hurt?" That whisper became the beginning of courage, the seed of transformation that would guide me through the storm. Discovery was the first shockwave. The small, almost imperceptible slips, the misplaced glove, the lingering gaze, the accidental exposure escalated into moments where concealment was impossible. Each encounter with near discovery, each awkward pause, was a test of resilience and presence. My mind raced, often imagining the worst-case scenarios, yet those encounters also forced me to confront the possibility of connection, empathy, and understanding. Even in panic, I realized that being caught was not necessarily the end, it was an opening. And when my closest ally saw me and did not recoil, it was as though a veil had been lifted. The fear remained, but hope began to pulse alongside it, fragile yet undeniable. Exposure to a larger circle intensified the stakes. Texts, conversations, and faces that held judgment, curiosity, or support flooded into my life all at once. The gut punch moment, the phone buzzing with "we need to talk," was a visceral reminder that the world is unpredictable and that authenticity always carries risk. Yet, as I navigated each reaction, I discovered the paradox of vulnerability. By allowing others to see my truth, I was not weakened. I was strengthened. Supportive words became anchors. Indifferent glances became lessons in emotional independence. And even cruelty became a measure of my ability to withstand life unflinchingly. I began to see that resilience is forged not in isolation, but in the intersection of exposure and survival, the delicate negotiation between fear and courage. The oscillation between highs and lows, between affirmation and doubt, became my new rhythm. I learned to read each encounter, to feel the pulse of social risk, and to embrace the discomfort as a necessary companion on the path to authenticity. There were moments of triumph, a smile from a stranger, a compliment from someone I least expected, a small recognition of courage that felt monumental. And there were moments of challenge, whispered doubts, sideways glances, and the lingering fear of rejection. Yet every experience, whether painful or joyful, served a singular purpose: to teach me that living authentically is not a linear path, but a dance with uncertainty, a negotiation with fear, and a deliberate choice to exist fully despite it all. What struck me most was the transformation in perspective. What I had imagined as catastrophic, the secret being exposed, revealed itself as liberating. The crashing down I had feared was not destruction, but the dismantling of my own limitations, the collapse of the walls that had confined my self-expression. The panic, the anxiety, the tension, they were all signposts pointing toward growth. Each confrontation with vulnerability, each exposure to judgment, each acceptance, however partial, was a step toward reclaiming a life I had only glimpsed in private. The fear did not disappear, but it was reframed. It became a compass rather than a prison, guiding me toward spaces where authenticity could thrive. I remember walking alone one evening, fully visible, aware that people could notice, judge, or dismiss me, yet feeling a quiet thrill that I had never known before. The texture of my clothing against my skin, the reflection of streetlights on my hair, the subtle hum of life around me were magnified by awareness and presence. I realized then that courage is not absence of fear, but action in spite of it. The very act of moving through the world as my authentic self, despite lingering anxiety, became a declaration. I exist, I matter, and I am not afraid anymore. That simple recognition was transformative, a moment of clarity that cut through years of concealment and hesitation. Empowerment, I discovered, is not a single act but a cumulative process. Each decision to be seen, each embrace of vulnerability, each confrontation with judgment or misunderstanding built an inner reservoir of strength. I began to recognize that resilience is cultivated not by avoiding exposure, but by choosing to navigate it deliberately, with awareness, with courage, and with the knowledge that fear is part of the journey rather than a barrier to it. My secret life, once a source of anxiety and shame, had become a teacher, guiding me towards self-acceptance, clarity, and a deeper understanding of what it means to exist authentically in the world. Now, when I reflect on the journey, I no longer see crashing down as something to dread. I see it as liberation, as a dismantling of illusion, as the moment when fear gives way to possibility. The anxiety, the uncertainty, the moments of exposure, they were the necessary crucible in which my authenticity was forged. And in the aftermath, I can say, without hesitation, that the risk was worth it. Every moment of vulnerability, every step into visibility, every encounter with acceptance or judgment contributed to a life lived fully, honestly, and resiliently. To anyone who feels trapped by a secret, who fears the eyes of the world, who doubts their right to be seen, know this: authenticity is a journey, not a destination. Resilience is born from exposure, and courage is measured not by the absence of fear, but by the willingness to continue despite it. You are allowed to exist fully, to explore, to be seen, and to claim your right to your identity. The world may not always respond with understanding, but the act of living openly transforms both self and circumstance in ways that concealment never could. I have learned that survival is not simply enduring, it is thriving in spite of fear, embracing the full spectrum of human reaction, and reclaiming one's right to be unapologetically visible. My story is not unique in its elements of anxiety, secrecy, or judgment, but it is unique in its lessons. That vulnerability is strength, exposure can be transformative, and authenticity is the ultimate liberation. The journey was difficult, the stakes immense, but the outcome is undeniable. I am not afraid anymore. I exist fully. I am seen and I am whole. And so, the message I leave for anyone hiding, trembling behind doors of secrecy or fear of judgment is this: your truth matters. Your courage is real. The world may respond in ways you cannot predict, but every step toward visibility is a victory. Every act of authenticity a testament to your resilience. Do not fear the crash, it may just be the release you need. Step forward. Stand tall. Live boldly. Your life, your identity, and your voice are worth it, and the freedom that comes from embracing them is unlike any other feeling in the world. I am living proof, and so can you. I want to take a moment to step out of my story and speak directly to you, because this isn't just my journey, it's something many of us carry quietly, tucked away beneath the surface of daily life. Thank you for listening, for following along through the fear, the exposure, and the slow unraveling of walls I built around myself. Sharing this with you feels like releasing a breath I didn't know I had been holding, and I hope in some way it allows you to breathe a little easier too. If you've ever felt like you're living two lives, constantly switching between who the world expects you to be and who you truly are inside, know this: you are not alone. That tension, that quiet ache of hiding part of yourself, is a shared experience, even if it often feels isolating. Perhaps you've kept a secret that feels too heavy to reveal, or maybe you've wondered how it would feel to finally step into the sunlight of your own authenticity. I understand that fear, the hesitation, the imagined judgments, but I also understand the subtle, transformative power of allowing yourself to be seen, even in the smallest ways. Sometimes it takes just one moment, one act of courage to shift everything. Maybe it's confiding in someone you trust, or taking a tiny step into visibility, or even acknowledging to yourself that your truth deserves space to exist. Those moments are powerful, not because they erase fear, but because they show you that fear does not have to control you. Every choice to embrace authenticity, to resist hiding, to honor your inner self, is a declaration that you are worthy of recognition, acceptance, and compassion. You do not have to wait for permission to exist fully. It is already yours. I also want you to know that this space, the community we are building here, is one where your experiences matter. The stories we share, the comments, the connections, all remind us that there is strength in vulnerability. If my journey resonates with you, if you've ever felt the tension of duality, I invite you to engage. Share your own story, leave a comment, or simply read and know that someone understands. Your voice adds to the conversation, your courage strengthens the collective, and your presence reminds others that they are not walking alone through hidden struggles. Subscribing and staying connected is more than just following a channel, it's joining a space where authenticity is valued, where stories of challenge and resilience are welcomed, and where we can witness the beauty of courage unfolding in real time. Don't miss the next story, because each one carries lessons, revelations, and insights that may mirror your own experiences more closely than you realize. Being part of this community means that you are seen, heard, and valued for all that you are, not just the parts the world often wants to define for you. As we close this chapter together, I want you to carry this thought with you. You are worthy of living openly, of embracing your truth, and of finding connection even in moments of fear. Life is not meant to be divided into halves. Hidden and exposed it can be whole, messy, authentic, and courageous all at once. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you, and for being willing to witness it. Step forward, speak your truth, and know that here in this space you belong.